Hello, everybody. Today we're going to look at a fundamental building block of modern pipelines, SQL databases. We're going to use Python to access an SQL or SQL database inside of an editor utility widget to build a basic scene setup for us automatically with a sequencer and some key assets needed for the scene. We'll use Python to add a spawnable camera to the sequencer, and we'll create a folder in the content browser to keep our project organized. This would be ideal for the layout team when they are doing the initial shot setup and loading in assets, setting the sequencer up, frame ranges, and everything like that, putting in the camera, and then before they begin animating and laying out and blocking out the scene. But you can use SQL in countless ways. It's just so useful, and having the data accessible inside Unreal is a game changer. Whether you're setting frame ranges, camera settings like film backs and lenses, asset lists, animation files, motion capture takes, and loading those in, and you can have everything ready and prepared for the artist so they don't have to go searching for all of this stuff, and loading each asset in individually. It can all be prepared in something like ShotGrid, for instance. We can access it and we can just automatically grab everything that's tagged for a specific scene or shot or sequence and just dump it right into our Unreal project and get right to work. So very quick, very efficient way to approach this. We're going to be doing a very simplified version of what a studio pipeline might involve, but it's going to cover all of the main features that you would expect at a studio. So let's get started. So there's a couple of things that we're going to need to do to set up our engine before we can begin working with Python and SQL. So we need to make sure that our Python plugin is active. So you're going to want to make sure this is editor script plugin is ticked, sequencer scripting, and you might as well turn on Python Foundation packages and set those, and then you'll restart your engine. The other thing we're going to need to do after that is if we go to editor preferences, is it editor preferences? No, my mistake. We're going to go to project settings, and we're going to come all the way down here to Python, and we're going to need to tick developer mode, okay? And then it's going to ask you to restart, and when it does that, it's going to generate a Python stub file for us. This will be in your project directory. So this is my project here, intermediate, and then this folder will show up. So this is our Python stub. And this is we're going to load this into our IDE in order to set up sort of some of the references and autocomplete and features like that we're going to expect. It's going to help our IDE understand Python in the Unreal context. So definitely we're going to want that. And once we have that, we can jump over to our IDE and start setting things up there. Okay, so here's my IDE. I use Rider for most of my scripting. And this will be different depending on what you're using, but generally pretty straightforward. For me, it's in settings. It's the Python interpreter. And then we're just going to select our stub file, and we'll cover these packages in a moment. But first we're just going to load in that stub file, and that's going to make writing Python a lot easier for Unreal. So we also need to tell Python to load the MySQL modules, and Unreal uses its own discrete install of Python on your system. So even if you are used to using these packages and these modules in your normal development environment, Unreal isn't going to use your native install of Python. It has its own discrete installation. So we need to make sure that we load those modules into Unreal's internal Python installation. So very easily, we go to our engine install, and we're just going to go engine, binaries, third party, and we can find Python, Win64, and here we go. So this is what we need. This is our executable. So we can simply right-click this, copy as path. We can do pull up a command prompt, and all we need to do is, this is our install path, and hit install MySQL connector Python. And I've obviously got it installed already, but you will see it go through a little installation there with a little progress bar. And once you're done, that's good. That means you'll have the MySQL Connect Python connectors installed to your Unreal Engine Python installation. Okay. Okay, so with all of that done, we're pretty much ready to start writing in Python and connecting to SQL databases inside the editor. So let's jump into Unreal and get started. Okay. Okay, so we're ready to get started. So first thing we're going to do is build an editor utility widget where we'll be able to input a shot code or shot name, and we'll use that to connect to our online SQL database and pull back some values that we can save into variables inside of our widget, and that'll be the focus of this video. So let's get started. We're going to need a new editor utility widget, and we can just call this EUW SQL shot builder. Okay, let's open that up. And we're going to keep this very simple. We'll set this to desired screen size. We're going to take a horizontal box, and we'll drop that into our canvas panel. And we're going to take a button, and we'll drop that into our horizontal box. We'll drop a spacer into our horizontal box, and we'll drop a editable text box. And yeah, that's what we want. Okay. And I'll just speed this up a little bit while I adjust some of the scaling and sizing for these widget components. Great. So we've got our little editor utility widget. This is looking perfect. And all we need to do is we'll have people input their shot code, build sequence, and that will generate our assets, organize them in the correct folders, import any assets we need into our scene, and load them into our sequencer. And we'll set the appropriate frame range and camera settings, all automatically based on data that is, sort of online in a SQL database like ShotGrid, for instance. Okay, so this is a good start. We can close that. And let's jump over to our graph. So we can just get rid of those. We can grab our text. And oh, actually, we need our event from our button on released. We'll do on released. There we go. We'll get our value from our text box. Okay. Okay. And real quick here, I am just going to adjust my UI scale so it's a little bit more readable for me. Okay. And so we need a shot name variable. That'll be a string. We're gonna set that like so. Okay. So this is going to be the variable that we're going to pass into our SQL database with some Python code. How are we going to do that? Well, in the editor, we have access to Python. We can't execute it at runtime, but if you're in here and you're in a blueprint that doesn't exist at runtime, like an editor utility widget, we can just type in Python and we'll have access to a few of these different execution nodes. So there's command. This is probably the simplest of the nodes, the Python nodes. It just runs a straight piece of code. Very simple. We need something with a few more features for what we're going to do because we need inputs and outputs. And so if we use execute Python script, you'll see down here the arguments we can put, we can add inputs and outputs here. Those are not available on the Python execute command node. You need to use the script, execute Python script node. Okay, so don't need this one. Execute Python script. And if we compile here, we're going to get errors because it's expecting actual inputs and outputs. So if we do that, save, run, and not that this should do too much, but there we go. We're running our Python script. What we need to do is we're going to need to get our variable into there. So let's go ahead and add an input here. We'll use shot name. Okay, and this will be our shot name. We can just pass that in. We'll just print out our shot name to make sure that everything is good to go. So we can just print shot name. Compile that. And ABC. Clear the log. Build sequence. And there we go. So now we're just printing our shot name. We can start writing our script. I think before we do that, let's actually just take a quick look at our SQL database so we know what is the schema for that. And so maybe it'll just give you guys a better idea of what we're going to be accessing. I'm not going to cover SQL in too much detail in this video, but let's take a quick look here. So okay, so if we look at our database, we've got our shot name. That's what we're going to be inputting, and then we're going to be pulling these three fields out of there. So we'll have an end frame, which will give us the length of the sequence that we need to build. We're going to grab an actor. and spawn that in our world. So, this was going to be basically a path to any asset in our project. And then the package path. And this is going to be the location that we're going to build our folders and save all of our newly generated assets into. So where do we want this data inside of our Unreal project? And obviously you can expand on this as, but this will give you an idea of modifying an asset, creating and modifying an asset, spawning an actor, and then storing that data and organizing it inside your project. Okay, and then let's take a quick look at what's in here already. So select star from Python demo. Okay, great. So we've got 2 shots with 2 frame lengths. They're both going to require, well, this is going to be what we actually use. You can ignore this. This wouldn't work for our script, but yeah. And then, of course, the package path. So this will be a location. This is the location of the actor we want to spawn and the location that we want to save. So minimize that. So let's get to scripting. We can open up our IDE here. This is just a blank, .py script right now. So what do we need to do? Well, we're going to need to import Unreal. Okay. And we're going to need to import the MySQL connector. And this is the module that we loaded in earlier in the video. Okay. We've got those 2 loaded in, and now the first thing we need to do is connect to our online database. To do that, we're going to say database equals SQL dot connector dot connect. Okay. And so this is the method that we're going to call to do that. And now we need to pass in some, okay. So now we need to pass in our host. Okay, we're going to need to pass in our user. Okay, we're going to need to pass in our pass WD. Okay, we're going to need to get our database itself. Okay, so these are the pieces of information we're going to need to pass to the connector in order to start a connection to the online database. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy some of my credentials in. So there's that. There's this. There's password. And there's the database that we need to access. Okay. Okay, so with that with that connection all coded, we can actually test this really quick. We can take this, we can bring it over into Unreal. Python command. We can just drop this down here and compare. Let's just do ABC. Okay. So no errors. So that means we should be good. So we're connecting. Nothing's happening, but if there were any errors with our code so far, that would they'd be highlighted there. Okay. So let's keep going here. We've got our connection, and now when we interact with the SQL database, we're going to be using a cursor, and that is a type of object that allows us to manipulate data, read data, and pull data from a SQL database. So we're going to need to generate one of those for our queries, and we're just going to call ours my cursor. Okay, and that's going to be db.cursor. All right, so there you go. And now that we have that, we can start interacting with the database. So if and to use that, we can use a method called execute. Okay. Um, when we're dealing with the SQL language, we're going to be using some very simple calls in this video. These are not the way you would generally do it, because you can package data sets together and pull a lot of data with one query. That's how you would do it in a more professional environment. We're going to be doing 3 separate queries just to keep things really easy and surface level. If you want to learn more about SQL, it's a great language, and it's very user friendly. It's very easy to read. It's very human readable, and you're going to get a sense for it right here. Okay, so here we go. So select. Okay, this is our most common query call that we're going to be using in SQL. It's pretty much the most basic thing you can do. So what do we need? Well, let's look over here. Okay, we need to get our end frame. Okay, so we're going to be working on shot ABC. Okay, and we need to get shot ABC, we need to get the value from the end frame cell here, okay? And then we're going to need to get the actor1 value, and we're going to need to get the package path value. So how do we get the end frame? So select end frame from Python demo. Okay, and Python demo is, where are we here? Python demo is the name of this table, okay? So we are in a database, okay? And the database is testDB. That's the actual database, but the database can have multiple tables in it. And the data that we want is on Python demo. That's the table that we're actually looking at. So you see here again, select star. This is everything that's in Python demo. So select the end frame value from Python demo. It's got multiple values in there, so we're going to say we want this. We want the value of end frame where the shot value is, or the shot name is ABC. So select end frame from Python demo, where shot name equals, okay, shot name, just shot name, okay. And we're going to surround that with plus markers, single quotations, and we're missing a quotation right here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So make sure you take a look at these quotations here if you're going to be using this. When we're sending in variable values, we need to follow a very specific highlighting or it won't read correctly. So yeah, make sure you've got that exactly as is. And then of course there's quotations around this entire query. Okay, so with that done, we are accessing this value, this 123 frame value, but we need to actually collect it into our cursor so that we can store it and then pass it back to Unreal. So for that, we'll use our result equals my cursor dot fetch one. Okay. And that'll be that's how we'll fetch that data out of that cell. Okay. And then if we have data, we're going to want to store it as a variable and probably print it out. And if we don't, we're going to want to pass back an error message saying we couldn't find the data, there wasn't any data there. So we can use a simple if statement for that. If result, okay, if result end frame equal the first result that we brought back. So in this case, it's going to be 0. We're going to print, and we're going to use a F string here so that we can input the variable for the shot name. So end frame for shot, and we'll do this curly braces shot name. Okay, so that'll read the variable that we've input. Need to encapsulate that, colon, and then we need the value of our end frame. So, and we'll write that there. So this will say if we find an end frame, we'll save that, we'll store that, the result from this in our end frame variable, and then we'll print the shot name and the value of the end frame variable. Okay. So that's, this is the majority of what we're going to end up writing. And we're going to just do the same thing for 2 additional variables. And then we're going to pipe all that data back into Unreal and store some variables inside of our editor utility widget. So nothing too crazy, really simple code, super effective at grabbing data from a database and bringing it into our projects. Let's pop over to Unreal and we'll just test this. So grab all that code, we're going to minimize this, we'll jump in here, we've got our execute script, and we'll just paste that in. Okay, and compile. And so here's our editor utility widget, A, B, C, shot number. Okay, we'll click build. There we go, and this is what we're returning. End frame for shot ABC. 1, 2, 3. And then if we check our database, shot name ABC, end frame 1, 2, 3. So looking good. Okay, we can minimize that. Okay, and let's finish this up. So the other thing we want to do, if we don't find a value, I do want to send back a log warning to our user. So we're going to use another F string here, and no data found for and putting in curly braces shot name. Okay, and of course the other quote there. Okay, so if we can't find any data, we'll just simply return that there was no data and supply them with the shot name. So looking good. Now, so that's our frame count. Okay, and you know what? For the next bit here, we can probably copy most of this and just dump it down here. Put another break in. Okay, but this time we're going to want to get our actor 1. We're going to want to get the value in this field here, actor 1. So select actor 01 from Python demo, where shot equals input shot name. Okay, we're going to store that in the fetch one. We're going to store that. We're going to change this out for a different variable. We'll just call this actor 01. All right. And we'll update our messages. Okay. Actor 1. Actor 01. All right. So that'll print the actor name. Okay. And then down here, let's change that to actor 01 in shot name. Okay. So pretty quick stuff here. That's our second piece of data that we're looking for. And you guessed it, come down here, and just do a third one here. And this one is going to be our package path. Okay, so select package path from demo, where shot name is shot name input. We'll store that result in a package path result. And then in our F string here, and our F string here, we'll just update the log warnings. Okay. And so that is pretty much most of our script. Let's jump back over into Unreal and give it a quick test. All right, so we'll just grab all that, minimize view, jump in here. Okay. And so if we compile ABC, that's our input shot. We'll clear this. And look at, here's the output. So of course we have our end frame for shot ABC is 1, 2, 3. Our actor for shot ABC is also coming back 1, 2, 3. And our package path for shot ABC is also coming back 1, 2, 3. So I think we forgot to change our variable names here. Of course. So we just need to, so where are we here? Okay, so this one is correct. This is end frame, actor 1. Okay. Okay, so all we need to do here is swap this out for our actor 1 variable. And if we come down here, we just need to swap this out for our package path variable. All right, so easy enough. And compile that. ABC, clear our log. Now let's take a look. All right, here we go. So, of course, we're getting our frame value. We're getting a path to the actor that we're going to end up spawning. Probably in a separate video. The execution of all of this will be in a separate video. Right now, in this video, I just want to focus on connecting to the SQL database and pulling the data into Unreal so we can manipulate it later. Package path, shot ABC, and then this is where we're going to be storing it. Okay. So this is great. We're returning all of our values inside the engine. Um, the last thing we need to do is store them in variables, here inside the actual blueprint. Um, so we're going to create an end frame variable, and that's going to be an integer. Okay. We're going to create a package path variable. That's going to be a string. And we're also going to create an actor one variable, and that'll be a string as well because it'll be a path. So those are good. And this node, you'll notice right now we do need to add some outputs to it. So we're going to need 3 outputs here. We'll need our inference. We'll need our package path. And we'll need our actor 01. Okay. So of course, you can see right away we're getting these errors. It needs to know what type of data to output these to. So we can grab this, grab you, and we'll grab you. We can just go across. So this will be our end frame variable. This will be our path, and this will be our active path. Okay. So that looks good. Let's do this. Let's run it again. Sometimes I like to close and rerun the editor utility widgets just to start fresh. Let's clear this. And then let's just triple check. Okay. Let's print this. Let's print this. And then we'll also print the end frame. Okay. Wow. And give it one more quick test here. All right, and look at that. So here we can see in these 3 lines of code this is Python returning the values, which is part of this script here. So that's this print f string function, and you're seeing that being returned here. These 3 are happening from the editor utility widget. That is, and so it's mirroring the data, so it's all correct. But now we can see that it's actually being generated from the blueprint as opposed to the Python script. So this is working. And from here you can obviously, this is a very simple SQL database, but you could just build on this as much as you want. And if you are familiar with the SQL language, you can concatenate a lot of these queries into very simplified, cleaner queries that will return lots of data with a single query. Okay, so that wraps it up for this video. In our next, my next video is sort of a part 2 to this. We're going to take this script, we're going to take these values, we're going to take this and we're going to build an automation Python script that's going to construct our basic level out of this data that we've just pulled from our SQL database. So if you like this, check out the next one. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.